Alright, we're going to go over Chapter 9 today. Not a real long chapter. It's on animations. I've mentioned this to you before. A lot of people like animations because it's kind of cool to see something slide across the screen or turn color or do whatever. Now, I mentioned this to you the other day, but I'm going to say it again. I believe this is what I want to show you. Yeah, I showed you this the other day, this jQuery and I showed you an example of the accordion. I'm not going to run through that, but if you go down a little further, notice that you've got animation. All right, so this is a simple one. This is color animation, but look on the screen if you would. Is that pretty obvious what's going on there? All right, so you can see the toggle effect. You can make it go back and forth. The big thing about this is don't overdo it, because it's so easy. People get so enthralled with this stuff. They're like, this is so cool. And they start doing this stuff, and now people look at it and go, wow, is that a cool website? You should have seen all these effects. Really, what was the website about? I have no idea. But I had really cool effects. All right, and if you look over here, notice they've got more. All right, I think that's the same stuff that's over here too. So you can hide and you can show things. So for example, again, is that pretty obvious what's going on there? All right, there's a bunch of different things that you can do. You know, you may or may not like this, but there's the shake. So there's different stuff like that that you can do. And you can combine this. You can combine movement with color. You can make something go in a circle or in a square or whatever way you want to do it. All right. And that's what this chapter is about. The author says, as you study these methods, remember the primary goal of the website is usability. All right. So you want to make sure the effects don't detract from that goal. It's kind of what I just told you. Keep in mind, too, that it may be difficult to understand how some of these methods work until you see them in action. So as the author has done before, notice we're going to look at the FAQ application with some effects. Then the slideshow with some effects. Slideshows can be kind of neat. Maybe you've seen this before. What some people like to do is rather than having the slide, kind of scroll across the screen, they'll take a slide and they'll have it slowly disappear, and they'll have another slide slowly appear. All right, I mean, that's another way that some of this stuff can be used. And they'll end with a carousel application that uses animation, kind of similar to what I just mentioned to you. So it says this chapter starts by presenting the basic methods for effects that are provided by jQuery. Figure 9.1 summarizes these effects. I'm not going to read them to you. All right? I'm asking you this question. Does it make sense to you that if you've got a fade in and a fade out, that fade toggle would say that either fade it in if it's not in, or fade it out if it's already in? Does that make sense? Toggle just means, again, it's like a light switch. If something is, make it not. If something's not, make it. All right? So again, there's a show hide and a toggle, a slide down, a slide up, and a toggle, a fade in, a fade out, and a toggle. All right? Those are just some examples. All right? And the basic syntax for using those, this is, if you look up on the screen, this is what I want you to get out of this. All right? When they talk about this stuff, the duration, how fast do you want that to happen? If you have something happen too fast, people don't even see the effect. If it's too slow, they could care less. And again, we've talked about this before. Little kids, for example, you can have some stuff animate on a screen quickly, and they can pick that up. Older adults, no. In fact, with older adults, you probably want to minimize the amount of animation that you even do. All right? So you want to do a duration. This right here, just so you know this, where it says here callback, what that means is when the animation is done, do you want something special to happen? So for instance, if you want something to go up and down on the screen, maybe 10 times, So it's over here in the upper left-hand corner. You want it to shift to the center and go up, down, up, down, up, down 10 times. Then when it's done, if you want it to go back where it started, that would be a callback. So a callback function runs after the animation takes place. And you can have it do whatever it is you want it to do. Or you can say, I don't even want a callback function. Then you don't write one. So they give some examples here. HTML for a heading that is animated after a page is loaded. All right. Now, when you do this, you could either have it fade in or you could have it fade out. All right. Now, to show you this is an example of not doing it. I bought the names. I bought the domain, thenamesjeffscott.com. All right. When am I going to do this? I don't know. Probably after I retire. But some of the stuff that I'm teaching now, I want to put it out there for free. All right? That people can use it if they want to. Now, I'm not doing anything with this. That's all that's in there right now. But what I could do with adding a little bit of jQuery is I could have that fade into view if I wanted that to happen. I don't see the need for it right now, but sometimes people like doing stuff like that. Or if they want to let them know that it's real close, it's almost ready, it's almost ready to go live, then maybe I would have it go like this. Say under construction, but coming soon or whatever. All right, so again, when you do that, typically you do it for effect. Here's something that fades out over 5 seconds. Here's something, now this is chaining. This is the first time we've really seen chaining. Because what does it say? It says grab this, have it fade out over 5 seconds. When it's fading out, then make it slide back down. See that? You could reverse these. Then it would slide down over a second, then it would fade out. See what I'm saying? So you can change the effect of how something looks based on how many of these methods you call and the order in which you call them. That's what I think the author is saying right here. All right, so when you set the duration, you can use slow, which normally means a few seconds, fast, which normally means a second or less, or you can put a time in there. So notice if you say slow, it's 600, and I don't even know if these numbers are correct anymore. All right, the default, if you give it no time, is 0.4 of a second. Slow is 0.6 of a second. Fast is 0.2 of a second. A lot of times you don't even use those, because if something happens in 0.2 of a second, I can't snap my fingers in 0.2 of a second. It takes longer than that to snap your fingers. So if you're doing something and you're going for a special effect and you do it fast where it happens like that, people wouldn't even see that it happened. It's like, who cares? Again, chaining is commonly used with these effects. Here's the FAQ with jQuery effects. Now, I don't remember. We can bring this one up if you want. But again, the idea is what we can have happen there is when we click this, then the stuff that's down here, we can make it fade up or fade out of view, and then have this fade into view. Get the idea? All right. With the right thing, so to speak, if you've got the right site, this can be great to have. A lot of times when it's just text like this, it's a pain in the ass. Pardon my French, but it's just, why are you doing that? So typically animation, in my opinion, works best either if you're working with images or if you're working with colors. But if it's just straight text, a lot of times you lose the effect, all right, with just text. You may agree with that, you may not. So what did they change here? This is the only thing that they've changed from what we had before. It fades out over a second. It slides down over a second. That's it. Slides back and forth. All right. So here's a slideshow with effects. So again, this is that slideshow. This one actually does make sense. This is what I mentioned before. These pictures, one fades out of view, the other one fades into view. See what I'm saying? And again, that can be cool. Again, just make sure that when you do that, you don't have it fade out too fast and fade back in too fast. People will miss pictures. All right? And usually with a slideshow, I found 3 to 5 slides is a pretty good number, especially if it's near the top of the screen. If you start putting in 8, 10, 12 slides, I've seen people do this. There are sites out there that have that. The problem is, oh wow, that was a really cool. Oh, the site just that slide just left. Now I got to wait 10 or 11 slides for it to come back again. All right, unless you provide again the little dots on the bottom or the dashes or the greater than less than on the sides. This is stuff we did before, giving these IDs. And there's different ways of coding the jQuery. As you'd probably guess, the more you get into this stuff, the more complex it's going to be. Meaning, the more code you're going to have to add. So again, the author shows you one way right here. It's pretty much code. Then another way down here with a little bit less code. But the bottom line is, and I've given this example before, it's not a great example, but if I said, hey, tomorrow, we're not, but if I said tomorrow we're meeting at the St. Louis campus, all right, I wouldn't tell you how to get there. I would figure out you could get there by yourself. And if I said, Keegan, which way are you going? And you said, I'm taking 364, I think it's better. I'm not going to say, well, that's stupid. You should take 70. That's a better way to go. The idea is, do you get where you want to go? All right? And the same idea is here. There's more than one way of doing the same thing. The way that you should use is the way that makes the most sense to you. You will have written test on this. I'm not going to make you do any animation in your tests. Now, if you say, I want to, then do some. I don't care. But I'm not going to make you do it. I'm trying to teach you the jQuery language. All right? All right. How to stop and start a slideshow. Again, they are showing you a way of doing it here. It says with this code, you can stop a slideshow by clicking on a slide and start it or restart it by clicking on it again. That's a great thing, again, for the elderly. All right? Because they can look at a slide as long as they want to, and then they can just click on it and have it continue. It's not just the elderly. A lot of people like doing it like that. So, again, it just depends. All right? And, I mean, with some work, you could set it up where you gave the user different ways to view the slideshow. You know, you could let them click on a slide, or you could have the little dots or dashes at the bottom. You can have the arrows on the sides. You can provide all that stuff. But if you're giving the user the opportunity to stop a slideshow and restart it by clicking on the slide, somewhere in that slideshow or above it, you should give them some text explaining that to them. Because otherwise they may not even know that it exists. I don't know about you, but I've used software before where somebody will come up to me and they go, hey, did you know if you do this? No, I didn't have a flipping clue. Because it was nowhere in the documentation. Somebody found it out by accident, by doing something. All right?
I also always think of like online shopping. If you look at pictures of clothes or something.
As far as what? Making it easy? Or what? Yeah. And if you ever going out to some sites, a lot of sites now, they'll show you something and they'll say it appears in 5 different colors. They'll have one of the colors, and then you click the little color button on the side and you'll see it in other colors. My wife loves that kind of stuff. So I wonder what it's going to look like in yellow. Thank God it's got like a yellow button there so she can look at it. All right? All right.
But it's always disappointing when they don't have a picture of the yellow too.
Well, then you, where they ask for comments on their website, that's when you comment. So, all right. Now that you know how to use the basic effects, all right, you learn how to use what jQuery website refers to as custom effects. All right. And what are custom effects? I mean, kind of going over and above. All right. What you could do, for example, right here, to me, if this animates and you're going to have it slide across the screen, you're losing the total message. if I am creating a website, and let's say that I'm creating a website, you're grade school kids, and I'm creating a website, we're learning multiplication. All right? Now, I could see something like, remember when you had to do the times table? 1 times 1, 1 times all that stuff? I could see, once you do the times table and you complete it correctly, maybe having the stuff start, flashing or changing color or whatever once you're finished. But I can't see taking something like that when you're doing it and animating it. All right? So the author says, when the animate method is run, the CSS properties for the selected elements are changed to the properties in the property map. It's pretty complex stuff. For some properties, width, height, opacity, do you know what opacity is? We talked about that. You can make something basically kind of fade. You can set the opacity of something to make it kind of fade into the background. All right, opacity is just a number between 0 and 1. If it's 0, it's transparent. If it's 1, it's opaque. All right? There's color transitions, and it says, although color transitions aren't handled properly by jQuery, they are by jQuery UI. That's what I showed you before. All right, chaining animate methods. Look at this. You can set these up any way you want. So here, there's chained animations. Here's queued animations. You may or may not know what a queue is. Guess what? You do know what a queue is, even if you don't think you do. You remember the first day of class when you had to go out and get your IDs and you all walked over there and you were in a line? All right, you were in a queue. That means the first one in is the first one out. Does that make sense? I'm just asking, does that make sense?
Yeah.
When you queue something, what you're saying is, do this. As soon as it finishes, do the next thing. As soon as that finishes, do the next thing. And if you want, you can put timers and stuff in there where you finish one thing, wait 2 seconds, then do the next thing. Does that make sense? Well, what question?
I was going to say, like, if you're ever adding music on you're playing music through, like, auxiliary, like, on your phone, you can add music songs to the queue.
Yeah, life is full of these. Anytime you go to a grocery store and you're behind somebody, you're in a queue. The opposite of a queue is a stack. If you've ever gone to a cafeteria, maybe you were in a cafeteria in grade school or high school or whatever, and the cafeteria person comes in and puts down a stack of trays, and you grab the top one, right? Because people say, what if it's dirty? No, you grab the top one. That's first in, first out. All right? I'm sorry, that's last in, first out. The last one is the one that's on top. So the last one that's in is the first one you grab. On the other hand, when you work with a queue, it's first in, first out. All right? So it says here, when you chain the effects and animations for an element, they're placed in a queue by default. They're run in sequence. It wouldn't make much sense. You can do this. Do I want something to turn red and slide across the screen at the same time? Or do I want it to slide across the screen and then turn red? Or do I want it to turn red and then slide across the screen? See what I'm saying? I've got 3 different ways I can handle that. I can queue it so that one happens and then the other happens. Or I can chain it where they'll basically look like they happen together. And that's what the author is talking about in here. Plus, again, we can have these callback functions. And, sometimes people look at that and they go, I really don't understand what you mean by callback. Well, what I could do if I wanted to is I could take my heading and I could have it slide across the screen and change color. Then once it's slid across the screen and changed color, I could have it go back to the beginning and change back to its original color. Does that make sense? That would be a callback function. All right. Now notice there is delay, stop, and finish. Notice delay. Delay the start of the next animation in the queue. You would do that for an effect. You don't ever have to do that, but you could do that. All right? Stop, which basically says if two things are running at the same time and it's too confusing, stop one of them. All right? And finish, which says stop what's currently running and clear the queue and start all over again, or start again. All right. So as it says, the delay in the first example works as an alternative to a one-stop timer. So there's a lot of different ways this can be done. I would suggest if you say, yeah, this is cool, I'd really like to learn about this. All right. If you do, let me know, because we can spend a day where we can create a website, simple website with a bunch of this stuff in there. But more than anything else, I'd just be going out to other sites and grabbing cool code and putting it in there. All right. Easings. Easing is just what you think it would be. Now, remember this site I just showed you a couple minutes ago? This thing right here? I don't know where it is in here. There's easing. Now, I know we looked at that yesterday a little bit, but look at this. That's something that happens linear, and they look almost the same. All right, so there's a lot of different ways that you can do this stuff. You can have it, well, they'll mention it here better than I could. All right. Easing refers to the way an animation is performed. jQuery provides two easings: swing, which is the default, it's the animation you normally want, and linear. Linear is, it almost looks too perfect, and animations, a lot of really good animations don't look perfect. All right. I don't know if you've ever seen this, but there's a kids thing. Every summer for the last 3 years, all the summers I've been here, a week during the summer, I go to St. Louis for a week and I teach middle school kids. Then I come back here and I teach middle school kids from around here. Well, the reason I'm telling you that is Evan and I last year, we were going to do some game programming stuff. And one of the ones that we looked at, it had this guy, and what happened was the guy just kept doing this. He wasn't actually moving, but they moved the scenery behind him. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it looked like he was constantly moving. He wasn't moving at all if you really watched it. All right, that's not natural. That's more linear. The more natural way where you'd actually show him moving a little bit, that's more a regular type of swing easing. All right. Not the greatest of explanations, but I think hopefully it makes you understand it a little bit better. All right. So when you animate, you can put all this stuff together. Okay. Now, if you do look, because we're just about done, if you do look at the end of the chapter, there will be some exercises, and like this carousel here. Notice this is probably the coolest thing that they've shown in the book thus far. Unfortunately, they use their own frickin' images to do that. But look on the screen here. This is very similar to what we did with Bootstrap. All right? But before Bootstrap, this is how people did slideshows. They used JavaScript. You can also create a slideshow just with HTML and CSS, but it's more work. All right? So they developed this way of doing it, but that was too much work. So people use Bootstrap, all right, because that's probably one of the easier ways of doing it. But when we look right here, 5 more LI elements. So these are going to contain all the books, all right, and here's the jQuery. And when you look at it, is it enough? Yeah, it's not. I mean, it's 20, 30 lines, but that's not bad for being able to create an entire slideshow. It really isn't, all right. All right. Now, just so you know, what I emailed you right before class started was this. We're going to do this after the break. It's a payroll calculator. This is what you have right now. I gave you the CSS. I gave you the HTML, but I didn't give you the JavaScript. We're going to write some jQuery. And when we get done, if I click calculate, you're going to get error messages over here. You know, first name mandatory, last name mandatory, etc. Does that make sense? Very similar to stuff we've done before, but we're going to do it using jQuery. All right? So